Welcome to the Video Professor series of computer learning tapes, the nation's #1 computer trainer. We'll take you step by step through learning to use your computer software. On the screen now are some other tapes available in our series. When using these tapes, we suggest you watch them in their entirety, then go back with your computer and practice each step. In keeping with the Video Professor's dedication to giving you the best lesson possible, we have packed these tapes with information and sometimes move at a pace that is faster than you will be able to follow along with as you are working with your computer. Remember, you can always pause or rewind the tape to learn each part. Now let's get started. And welcome to my lesson on Lotus 5.0 for Windows. This application is one of the most popular spreadsheet programs in use today. It makes working on a business or home accounting project a snap. Although this tape is intended for people who are new to this program, it will also be helpful to veteran Lotus users who are upgrading. Whether your spreadsheet needs are for a business or of a personal nature, Lotus can help you organize, calculate, and present your data quickly and efficiently. You also get all the advantages of working within Windows. You can take text from a word processing program, numbers and charts from a spreadsheet program, and combine all these sources to create a well-balanced professional presentation, all without a lot of complicated file exchange procedures or stopping and starting programs. Because Lotus works within the Windows environment, it is important to understand how Windows works. You should understand the difference between an application window and a document window and how to manipulate the size of both. You should also understand how to use your keyboard and mouse to select options within pull-down menus and dialog boxes. If you don't, I strongly suggest you see my tape Learning Windows before starting this lesson. I also assume you have a basic understanding of DOS for this lesson. And again, if you need a review, see my tape Getting Started with Your Personal Computer. Now, before we start the lesson, I'd like to introduce my student assistant, Suzanne. Just follow along with her and you'll be using this program in no time at all. As we proceed through the lesson together, you will learn basic Lotus spreadsheet skills, such as entering and editing data, creating labels and formulas, formatting your spreadsheet, working with smart icons, plus saving and printing files. And at the end of this lesson, I'll show you how to create a chart based on data within a Lotus 123 spreadsheet. And to get these results, you'll need Lotus 5.0 already installed on a computer with at least 4 megabytes of system memory. I assume your system has a working keyboard and mouse. A printer is recommended, but not totally necessary to get the benefits of this lesson. Later in this lesson, we'll save our work to disk. Suzanne and I will save to a floppy disk to avoid cluttering up the hard drive. I suggest that you two have an empty formatted diskette on hand to save your Video Professor results too. The commands given in this lesson will be a mixture of mouse and keyboard actions and are the ones I believe to be quicker or more appropriate for a given situation. If you haven't already turned on your computer, do so now. Once it is on, make sure the Windows Program Manager is open and active on screen. You should have a separate group icon for Lotus 5.0 for Windows. Double-click on that icon to open its group window. Within the group window, double-click on the Lotus 5.0 application icon. It should look like the one you see on screen now. This will launch the program. When you open Lotus for Windows, a new spreadsheet is automatically opened within the application window. A dialog box opens asking if we want to create a new worksheet or work on an existing worksheet. We are just starting, and with Create a New Worksheet already selected, just press Enter or click on OK. Another dialog box opens, giving us a large selection of different types of spreadsheet templates. These choices will open more dialog boxes, allowing you to enter information to create these specific spreadsheets. This is new to Lotus, and its Smart Master program is something you might want to come back and work with later. For now, though, we want to make sure you understand how the electronic spreadsheet works. Suzanne makes sure there is an X in the box next to Create a Plain Worksheet, and click on OK. The screen you see before you is the out-of-the-box Lotus screen display. None of the default settings have been changed. Don't worry if your screen display differs from Suzanne's. In a couple of minutes, we'll take a look at the commands that control this application's display features and which tools are active. The Lotus program is displayed with all the standard Windows layout and controls. At the very top of the screen is the title bar. Right now it reads Lotus 5.0 for Windows. When we name and save our spreadsheet file to disk, our file or spreadsheet name will appear here. On the left side of the title bar is the standard Windows control menu, and on the far right we have the standard Microsoft sizing buttons. Viewers, click on the Maximize button if your application window doesn't cover the entire screen. Just below the title bar is the menu bar. The pull-down menus that appear on this bar allow us to select almost any option within this program. At the far right of this menu bar is the ever-present Help menu. Although general in description, you can use the Help menu to find information on very specific subjects and commands. You start by selecting the general topic that relates to your question. Then select subcategories or topics to narrow the search. Again, viewers, we assume you are familiar with and know how to work within the Windows environment. Under the main menu bar are other bars containing command lines and icons that are specific to the Lotus program. We'll see more of how these work as we move through the lesson. Before moving on, let's make sure we all have the same screen view so there won't be any confusion about what we are talking about. Suzanne, click on the View menu and select Set Preferences at the bottom of this drop-down menu. In the dialog box that opens, make sure there is an X beside each of the selections. Clicking on the little boxes will turn the X's on and off. Choose OK when done. Now, Suzanne, click on the Tools menu and from its drop-down menu, choose Smart Icons. A dialog box appears with many choices for customizing the type of smart icons you can choose from. We want the default sheet setting that should be displayed in the box at the top of this dialog box. If not, simply point and click on the down arrow to the right of this box. Find the default sheet setting and click on it to make it the active selection. We should also make sure that the top is selected in the position box and you have an X in the small box at the bottom beside Show Icon Description. This will cause a balloon to show up when your mouse pointer is on top of an icon explaining what the icon does. Once everything is selected, click OK to return to our spreadsheet. Now everyone's screen should look the same. Suzanne, move the mouse pointer along the row of icons and watch the balloons appear with the descriptions of what each icon does. That makes it pretty hard to forget just what they can be used for. Now let's explore more of the Lotus screen layout. The Lotus 123 window frame appears on the Windows desktop. The Lotus 123 window is the program or application window. The document window is called a spreadsheet in Lotus 123. The application window is sometimes called the parent, and the spreadsheet is sometimes called the child. You must have an application window or parent open before you can have a document or child spreadsheet. There may be multiple children all running within the parent window. That is, you can have several spreadsheet documents active within the Lotus 123 application at any one time. The line that appears just below the menu bar is the input line. It gives information about the active cell in the spreadsheet and offers ways to enter text and formulas into the cells. The left side of this line tells us that the active cell right now is A1. Viewers, notice that moving your mouse pointer to any place on your spreadsheet and clicking will select that cell, and the active or selected cell will appear in the input line. A cell is the intersection between a row and column. The numbers that show on the left side of the spreadsheet refer to the rows that go across the worksheet, and the letters that show on the top refer to the columns that go down the worksheet. Move your pointer to the top left cell and click. The input line should say that cell A1 is selected. Before entering anything into a cell, you can choose what font style and size you want. Suzanne, click and hold on the Style menu and drag down to highlight Font and Attributes, and release the mouse button. In this dialog box, you can choose any formats you want. It should read Arial 12 point. Viewers, if yours does not, simply highlight those choices with your mouse pointer. You may need to scroll through choices to find them. You could also change your font color by clicking on the color box and see an example of all changes in the sample box. For now, make sure only the normal is checked off in the Attributes box and select OK when finished. Everyone type your name. See how the letters you type appear in the center section of the input line? Now don't press the Enter key just yet. When you started typing, Suzanne, two more symbols also appeared on the input line. The red X is the Cancel button, which works like the Escape key. The green check mark is the Confirm button, which works like the Enter key. Your typing looks okay, Suzanne, so click on the green check mark button to enter the text into the cell. The bottom line is our last main area to look at. It contains some of the key features that control the appearance of the spreadsheet and provide us with some status reports. Let's start at the far left side. Click on the word Automatic and we see a long menu of items that tell us how our input will be formatted. This is one of several places where we tell the spreadsheet what the numbers we input represent, whether they are general numeric or units of various currency or dates in several formats. We'll see more of how this works later. To the right is another place where you can choose the font style. It should say Arial. Click on that word and a complete listing of all loaded fonts appears. For some users, this will be quite a long list. Use the scroll bar on the right edge to view additional fonts listed in alphabetical order. Then we'll move back up to the top of the list and highlight Arial. Clicking on that choice closes the menu. To the right of the font style is the font size. The default is usually 12. Click on that, Suzanne. And we now have a font size menu. Click on the 12 to close the window. Just to the right of font size is time and date. This is controlled by the settings of the system clock. Click once on time and date, Suzanne. Now we are shown our cell size, which is telling us our cell height is the same as a 14-point character, and a cell can fit 9 characters across. This can be changed as we'll see later, but this is the default size we start with. Since time and date are more useful, let's toggle back to that. 3 small boxes are also on the bottom line. When we click on those, we see a familiar list. The Smart Icon groups are given in a menu format. Using this menu is a shortcut for choosing and changing the icon group that shows on the Smart Icon line. The change is immediate when you click on a group name. Let's make sure our choice is Default Sheet and close the menu either by clicking directly on Default Sheet or by pressing the Escape key. Many of the areas on the lower line may be blank since we're not currently working on a spreadsheet. However, various status reports will appear in these areas as we begin our work. The last area on the far right tells us the status of the cell. Right now it reads Ready, meaning Lotus is ready for some input into the cell. As you can see, there are several ways to accomplish the same task in Lotus. As you work in the program, you can decide which selection method you prefer. Okay, there are just a few more areas we need to become familiar with before we start creating our spreadsheet. Suzanne, click on cell E11. That's a cell where row 11 and column E intersect. Now look at the left side of the formula bar. That's the address of the cell you just clicked on. Now click and drag your mouse pointer from this cell to cell G13. When you let go of the mouse button, the entire area stays highlighted with the first cell active and the address is visible in the formula bar. This is called a range or block of cells. Blocks can be any size, but they must always be rectangular and consist of adjacent cells. Once a range has been selected, you can do any formatting changes you want, and it will apply only to the selected cells. Clicking anywhere outside the selection deselects it. Suzanne, before we go any further, let's clarify some definitions. You've heard and will hear the terms spreadsheet, worksheet, and file throughout this lesson. They may seem confusing or interchangeable. The word spreadsheet is a rather generic term for this type of application program. It is also used in describing a single page or multiple pages. The pages are referred to as worksheets. You can have one or several worksheets within your spreadsheet. For example, within a corporation, you may have a separate payroll worksheet for each division. Instead of having a separate worksheet for each division, you can work and save all this work under a single spreadsheet name. When you name and save a spreadsheet to disk, it is saved under a single file name. So a file name can consist of one worksheet or several worksheets. Now let's look a little closer at moving within the spreadsheet. As with most Windows-based applications, we are given scroll bars. These bars allow us to move to areas within the worksheet not in our immediate view. Suzanne, drag the little box in the right-hand scroll bar down to the bottom. Then look at the row numbers. You move down more than 100 rows. Now click on the right arrow in the bottom scroll bar. Clicking once on the arrows in either scroll bar moves your view one column or row at a time. Column B is now the first column.
Professor, I can't see my name anymore. Where did it go?
Your name is still in the worksheet. However, we did move it out of our screen view. Right now, our view consists of columns B through I and rows 101 through 120. Suzanne, click and hold your pointer on the little arrow again. Notice how fast the columns move in and out of view. You'll also notice that the columns have extra letters in them now. Now release the mouse button. Since there are more columns in the spreadsheet than letters in the alphabet, the letters are doubled up each time the count gets to Z. AA, AB, AC, and so on, up to VEE. That is 256 columns. Suzanne, click on cell BA 101. Now hold the down arrow key a few seconds and notice the number of rows go racing by. Open the Edit menu, Suzanne, and select the Go To command. Type in BB8001 and select OK. Our active cell becomes BB8001. Suzanne, press your Home key to move us back to cell A1, sometimes called the Home cell.
Professor, this worksheet seems pretty big.
It is, Suzanne. There are 8,192 rows in each spreadsheet, and there are 256 columns. If you could lay the worksheet over a football field, it would be over 50 yards long and about 10 feet wide. That's over 2 million available cells in each worksheet, and that's just the start. Suzanne, notice the little tab with an A on it just on top of cell A1. That tells us this is sheet 1 of hundreds available. Viewers, if you don't see this tab, click on the folder icon just on top of the vertical scroll bar. This will toggle the sheet's area on and off. Now, Suzanne, click twice on the new sheet area next to the folders we toggled with. Now you should see a tab for A, B, and C worksheets. Click on the B and that worksheet comes to the front. We won't be working with multiple worksheets in this lesson, so with the B sheet highlighted, pull down the File menu and select the Close command. Click No at the Save dialog box. By answering no, we are telling Lotus to close all new inserted worksheets without saving them. Counting all the cells available from all the sheets available, you'd probably run out of data and computer memory before you'd run out of space. Well, Suzanne, we've been looking at this blank worksheet long enough. Let's build a simple personal budget. All right, then, let's start at the top. Everyone should have cell A1 selected with your name showing in that cell. The title of our spreadsheet will be Personal Financial Budget. Please type it just as it appears on the screen, including all the spelling mistakes. Any new typing will replace the old words in this cell. When you finish, click on the check mark or press your Enter key. This cell entry is called a label. Labels are usually words that tell us what the numbers in our spreadsheet are all about. They will usually be column headers or row identifiers. Although we could have corrected the title before entering it, it is almost as easy to edit it once it is in the cell. The mistake we want to correct is in cell A1, so make sure that cell is selected. The words now appear both in the cell and on the edit line at the top. Suzanne, click and drag your mouse from the F to the second N in Financial. Now press your Delete key to make the highlighted text disappear. This method works well when you want to delete larger words or entire phrases. You can also use the Delete key to erase a few letters at a time. Go ahead and press your Delete key until the remaining letters in Financial are erased. Once done, click on the check mark to enter this label back into cell A1. Suzanne, now use your mouse to place the cursor between the U and G in the misspelling of budget. With the cursor in place, type in a D. Now press the Enter key to accept the change. Remember, if you didn't want to keep the change, all you would need to do is press your Escape key or click on the Cancel button.
Professor, personal is still misspelled. What are we going to do about that?
We are going to leave that deliberate misspelling alone for now. We'll use it to illustrate another Lotus 123 feature a little later in this lesson. Most of you will have noticed by now that the words personal budget are too big for cell A1. They spill over into column B. This is called a long label, and it isn't a problem unless something in column B also wants to use the space. We'll see how to handle that later. For now, you should understand that this typing is all stored in cell A1 as the edit bar shows. Suzanne, click on cell B1 and look at the edit bar. That cell is empty, which is why the words from A1 were able to spill over into column B. Suzanne, move down to cell A3 and type in income. When you finish, press the Enter key. Then use the down arrow to move one cell below that. Type expenses in cell A5 and press the Enter key again. We'll keep this budget simple and stick to the basic necessities. On screen now are our remaining categories: auto, clothing, food, insurance, rent, leisure, and savings. Type the expense labels into the cells directly below the expenses title in column A, exactly as you see on screen. Press the down arrow key after entering each word. This may take some time, so feel free to stop or rewind the tape to allow enough time to type these labels into your own spreadsheet. At the bottom of the list of expense categories, type in total expenses. We also need a balance line, so leave one blank row and then type balance in cell A15. When you finish that, click on row 2 in column B and type in January and press Enter. Now, Suzanne, I want to show you a neat feature of Lotus called Fill. Lotus is pretty smart and knows when you are entering sequential information like months and days. Suzanne, with the January cell already selected, move your mouse pointer to the lower right of this cell. Notice the pointer now has little arrows on it pointing to the right and down. This lets you know the Fill command is ready to go. Click and drag to the right until you have selected cells C2 and D2. Release the mouse button, and like magic, February and March appear. Suzanne, press your Control and Home keys together to move us back to cell A1. We're going to spell check our labels. From the main menu, click on Tools. Look down the menu for Spell Check and click on that. The Spell Check dialog box opens with a number of optional settings. The area that we want checked can be an entire file, which is the default choice as shown by the darkened radio button. It can be the current worksheet in the event that we had a series of worksheets we were currently working on, or it can be a specific range of cells. Notice that the currently highlighted cell is automatically filled in, but the radio button is not active. We will leave the default choice of entire file. Language options lets us choose from whatever language module files we have loaded. In this case, we see the Language Options window has a path to the spell directory in Lotus app, and that the default choice is American. Choose OK. The Edit Dictionary option provides us with a window allowing us to change standard word spellings and meanings. We'll make no changes here, so press Cancel. The Options window presents a series of toggle choices. The default is the first three active, which are Check for repeated words, Check words with numbers, and check words with initial caps. We'll leave the last two unmarked and click OK. At the main spell check window, click on OK again. The spell check program then starts showing us the unknown word underlined on the top line. Below that is a highlighted word that will be offered as a replacement word to correct the perceived error. In this case, there are several alternative spellings offered in the lower window on the left. The first choice, personal, is the correct choice. When we click on it, it moves into the Replace With window. Replace All is useful when we have a very long document or when we know that we have misspelled the word on several occasions. Use Replace when you only want to change that single word. Generally, you are better off choosing Replace All as a default. Skip All is a command that says, do not change any instance of the unknown word. And Skip instructs the spell checker to only disregard the single occurrence of the word. Add to Dictionary is useful when we use a word or acronym that is not in the dictionary but that we will be using often. It instructs the dictionary that the unknown word is actually correct. After that, the spell checker program will not bring it to your attention again. Close simply exits the spell check program. Here we want to press Replace All. Now repeat for the word insurance. When we have done that, the spell check informs us that spell check is complete and that no other unknown words exist in the entire file. Press Enter and we return to the spreadsheet with the corrections made. This is a pretty good outline, Suzanne, so let's save this work to disk before a computer error or other unnatural disaster strikes. Suzanne, right now, if we save this budget spreadsheet, it would be titled Untitled. That doesn't tell us much, so let's give it a proper name. Suzanne, pull down the File menu. This menu has two save commands to choose from. Which one should we choose? Why don't we ask Lotus 123 to help us decide? Suzanne, use your down arrow key to highlight the Save option. The edit line message tells us that this command will save the current file on disk, which in this case means the spreadsheet. It doesn't say anything about giving the spreadsheet a name. Press the down arrow key again to highlight Save As. This command will save all or part of a file with the name and file type you want. Our file has not been saved or named yet, so this sounds like the right choice. Since Save As is highlighted, press your Enter key to open up the File Save As dialog box. The Save As dialog box is designed to help us store our file in the correct place. Its areas display information about the three parts of a file storage address: the drive, the directory, and the file name. There is also an area where you can specify a different file type. For instance, if you wanted to save a Lotus 123 file in a format to be easily read by Excel or Paradox. In the middle right of the dialog box is the Drives area. It allows you to select from the different drives on your system. It's showing the drive destination of the last file opened, which was our Lotus 123 program on Drive D. Above the Drives area is the Directories area. In it, you select which directory to save your file in. The current path is displayed at the top. 123R5W\work is currently open. See how the file folders are opened up, showing the tree structure down to the work directory? Just to see the difference, Suzanne, double-click on the 123R5W folder. Now look at the written out path and the directories chosen in the window. See the change? That directory is shown by the tree as a new set of folders inside the 123R5W folder. If we saved our file now, it would be saved in this directory, just as the path area above the section indicates. We want to save the spreadsheet to a blank floppy disk, so we need to change this address. Suzanne, click on the down arrow to the right of the Drives box. You will see a list of all the drives available on this computer. Each person's computer will have a different assortment of drives, directories, and files. Our system has drives A, B, C, D, and E. Everyone insert your blank formatted disk into the appropriate floppy drive. Then click on A under Drives to give that new address in the Save As command. Viewers, if you are using the B drive to save your lesson files, click on B, or if you don't want to save to a floppy, choose a directory on your hard drive to save the files. Suzanne has no subdirectories on her brand new floppy disk, so the directories box is empty and the path shows A:\/ to indicate the root directory on that disk. Viewers, if you have subdirectories on your floppy disk, click on the correct one to store your lesson file. Now we're ready to name this file. Suzanne, click and drag across the generic file name, then type budget. Your typing will replace the other words. Remember, you can only use 8 characters for a file name. Check the Save As File Type box in the lower left corner. It should read 123. If it doesn't, click on the arrow next to this box and select this file type. This is where you could choose a different file type if you want, such as saving this file as an Excel file. With that said, everyone press Enter or click on OK. As soon as we do that, the Save As process begins, and we can hear the computer writing to the A drive. Also note that the name we've chosen, budget.wk4, appears on the worksheet title bar on the screen. The WK4 extension was automatically added by Lotus 123 because we chose that file type. Now that we have some labels in our budget spreadsheet, the next step is to write the formulas that will automatically do the arithmetic for us. A formula is simply the mathematical instruction that tells Lotus 123 how to combine numerical data in your spreadsheet. Formulas can contain numbers, text, operators, cell and range addresses, range names, functions, and other formulas. The formulas we'll use in this budget are very simple. Balance means income minus total expenses, and total expense is the sum of all the listed expenses.
Professor, we don't have any numbers in the spreadsheet yet. How can we do arithmetic without numbers?
Yes, I guess that must seem pretty strange if you haven't used a spreadsheet before. But in fact, you've just touched on the real power of spreadsheet programs. We can write formulas to define the relationship between items, like adding or subtracting, without even knowing the value of those items. Then we can put in different numbers and test various models for their answers. This is called Whatif Analysis, and budgeting is just one of the ways you can use this tool. Suzanne, let's write a formula that will calculate the balance for January. Click in cell B15 where the answer to the formula should appear. Type an equal sign. This tells Lotus 123 that you want to start writing a formula. Now, Suzanne, point to cell B3 and click. And that cell address appears both in cell B15 and in the edit bar. Now type a minus sign to show that we want to subtract the second cell from the first, and then point and click on cell B13. The formula you have just written in is income, which is in cell B3, minus total expenses in cell B13. This is the correct formula to calculate the balance in January, so click on the check mark to complete the entry. The formula has altered to replace our equal sign with a plus sign. That tells us a little about how Lotus prefers our formula input to be. A 0 appears in the balance cell for January in cell B15 to show the result of calculating the formula. In this case, it's 0 because we haven't entered any actual income or expense numbers yet. Once a formula is entered, it is no longer displayed in the cell it was created unless you are editing the formula and click directly on the cell. We just created the simplest kind of formula. Now, let's create a variation of this type of formula to add all 7 categories of expenses together in the total expense cell for January. First, click on cell B13. Now type a plus sign, B6, plus B7, plus B8, and so on, until all the expense cells for January are listed, ending with B12. Of course, the point and click technique we did for the balance formula could be used here, but it would take longer. When you have typed in the whole formula, check it carefully for typing errors. You don't want to miss any expenses, and you surely don't want to add any twice. Suzanne, our formula looks correct, so press the Enter key. Once again, we have 0 for the answer. That last formula took a lot of typing. Let's look at a shortcut that makes calculations like this one quicker and easier. The shortcut is called the @sum function. Since all 7 expenses are listed next to each other in a column, they can be treated as a block, and we can use the @sum function to add them together. The @sum function is one of many standard formulas that have been stored in Lotus 123, but it can also be entered from the keyboard. Suzanne, the @sum formula that we're going to write will do the same arithmetic as the formula we put in cell B13. Select cell C13 for the destination of this formula. Once again, start by selecting the cell where the answer should appear. Now we will use an @ function to complete this formula. Click on the @ icon on the edit line. We will be adding several numbers, so the obvious choice will be the sum formula. Click on that. Cell C13 now has @sum and list inside of parentheses. We need to tell the formula which cells to add together. The total expenses for January will be the sum of lines 6 through 12. So we click on cell C6 and drag the cursor down to cell C12. This will highlight that range of cells and will fill in those cell addresses both into the @sum formula in cell C13 and into the formula on the edit line. Now release the mouse button. Since we are certain that this is the correct formula, click on the green check mark to indicate that we accept the formula as written. Now we need to put the formulas into the final month of March. I'll show you an even easier way to do that. Suzanne, if we just cut and paste the formula from cell C13 and paste it into cell D13, what would you expect would happen?
Well, Professor, I guess we would have the same numbers appear in 2 places, right? We would have totals from column C appear in column D also, wouldn't we?
Well, Suzanne, that was a trick question. Normally, you would expect that whatever you copied and pasted would end up to be exactly duplicated, like you said. But when it comes to formulas, Lotus 123 is smart enough to realize that when we move a formula to a new location, it needs to change to reflect the details of its new location. So in fact, what happens is the formula will rewrite itself to reflect the sum of the values in the D column. First, click on cell C13 to highlight it. Then click on the Edit menu and click on Copy. Now click on cell D13. Return to the Edit menu and click on Paste. Notice on the Edit line that the new formula that we just put into cell D13 reads at sum D6 ... D12. So the adjustment was made automatically. Now we need to write a formula for the balances for the months of February and March. It will be the same formula that we used in cell B15 for January. But we're going to learn a different way of copying formulas to adjacent cells. We'll use the copyright command. Suzanne, if you click on cell B15 and drag across to cell D15, we will have a range of 3 cells outlined. Click on Edit up in the main menu, and then click on the copyright command. This is another example where Lotus should make some automatic adjustments at the column change. Let's check to see that Lotus did it correctly. The formula showing on the Edit line is for column B. Click on cell C15 and see what the Edit line says. There! It now shows the formula of income minus total expenses, but it altered itself to reflect the values in the C column. Click on D15 just to be sure. Yep, Lotus adapted the formula to fit the D column also. Before we go much further, let's save to disk the new changes to our spreadsheet. We can use File Save because we already saved the file a while ago and gave it a name. Go ahead and click on that icon, Suzanne. Remember, you can also pull down the File menu and select the Save command from that menu. We now have all the necessary ingredients to do a successful what-if analysis. Before we do that, though, let's look at a few more basic spreadsheet skills. Suzanne, I think the page will be easier to read if we do a few formatting tasks. In general, formatting refers to the controls you have over the appearance of your spreadsheet. This includes type style and size, lines and borders, column and row height and width, and other visual features that make your spreadsheet more understandable. Suzanne moved the mouse pointer to the column header with the ABC labels for each column. Now place your pointer on the line between the A and B column. When you get there, the pointer will turn to a line with double arrows. Good. Now double-click your mouse button. The column width automatically adjusted so that the longest title now fits within column A. That made the column wider like we needed, but now we have more room than necessary for the individual expense labels. It adjusted to the maximum width needed for the long title in A1, and that gives us more space than we need for the long title in cell A13. We'll fix that in a minute. I think if each of the expense categories were indented, they would be easier to read, so let's do that. Click on the B at the top of column B. That will highlight the whole column. Now click on Edit and then on Insert from the menu. Isn't that easy? There's a new column B. We can also delete a column after highlighting it by pulling down the Edit menu and clicking on the Delete command. Now click and drag down from cell A5 to A12 to highlight the list of expenses. Then release the mouse button. We'll move this list into the new column to indent it. Suzanne, click on the scissors button in the tool icons. Now we'll put the list in the new column B. There's a shortcut. You only need to click on the top cell to show where you want to move the whole block. So click on B5, then click on the paste icon. Now let's make column A a little smaller, so the indent isn't so deep. Place your pointer on the line between the A and B column again. Once there, click and drag the column divider to the left so that the right column line of row A appears just after the word expenses in cell A13. Click on the number 13 of the row headers along the left side of the worksheet. That highlights the entire row. Now pull down the Edit menu and click on the Insert command. I'm not sure I like that extra row, so let's get rid of it. Make sure the new row is highlighted by clicking on the number 13, then pull down the Edit menu. We could undo the insert by clicking on the Undo command. However, if you have done some other command in between, we couldn't use this to remove the row. A surefire bet is to select Delete. Do that now, Suzanne.
Professor, what effect will adding or deleting columns have on my formulas?
Each time a row or column is inserted or deleted, Lotus 123 adjusts the formulas in the spreadsheet to accommodate those changes. Click in cell D13. The formula has moved along with the row changes, and it works as it was originally intended. It still adds all the February expenses together. Now let's format this worksheet's labels to make them stand out a little better. Click on cell A1, Suzanne, then click on the boldface button on the icon bar. It has a big B on it. There, our title is now bold-faced.
Professor, I'd like to make the months bold and the words income and expenses bold as well. Do I have to do each one separately?
No, you don't, Suzanne. You can format many cells at one time. Here's how. Drag across the names of the 3 months to select the block. Then hold down the Control key and click on A3 for income, A5 for expenses, A13 for total expenses, and A15 for the balance label. Once you have those cells selected, click on the bold button again to boldface all these cells at once. Now let's adjust the line between column A and column B to match the new size. There, that looks pretty good. Now click and drag across cell A1 to E1. Let's make this title a little bigger. On the status bar, Suzanne, click on the area with the 12 to open up the font size menu. Within this selection of options, move your pointer to select the font size of 18 points. Once done, click on Style in the main menu. Now select Alignment to open the Alignment dialog box. We want to activate the radio buttons for center and for across the columns. Click OK. The title is a little too large for this row, so let's adjust its height. Suzanne, move your pointer to the row divider line between rows 1 and 2 and then click and drag it down towards row 3. Release the mouse button when the line reaches the top of the row 3 line. That looks a lot better. I've only shown you a few of this program's many formatting options. As you can see from these examples, there are many ways to apply them. Before going any further, click on the Save icon to quickly save these changes to disk. Now we're ready to do some budget work and some what-if analysis. We'll start with your monthly salary of $1,500, so click on cell C3 and type 1500. Don't type a dollar sign or any commas. When you finish, press Enter. With the down arrow, move to the cell for auto expense. Suzanne, it looks like our formulas are working. With $1,500 income and no expenses, we have a balance of $1,500 in cell C15. Too bad that won't last. Well, here goes all the money. Enter $300 for auto expenses, then arrow down a cell, and enter $200 for clothing. Now enter $150 for food. There is no insurance expense for January, so leave that cell empty. Your rent for the month is $500, so enter that amount in cell C9. Now let's see what the balance is. Our total expenses so far add up to $1,150, and the balance is $350. We still need to budget for leisure activities and put something into savings for a rainy day or maybe a nice vacation. Let's enter $125 for leisure activities. That leaves us $225 to place into our savings account. With that done, we've allocated all your income, leaving a balance of $0 in the January budget. Suzanne, most expenses will be the same from month to month. So let's copy these numbers over into February and March. We can use the copy and paste commands to do this, or we can use the copyright command. Suzanne, click and drag your pointer from cell C3 to C12 to mark the range for the numbers already entered. Then drag over to E11. Go up to the main menu under Edit and click Copyright. That fills our January numbers into the remaining months. Now, we have been dealing with money, but we don't have a dollar sign on these figures. We'll do that now. First, drag the mouse across the row heading for C, D, and E. That's where all the numbers are. Now, Suzanne, under Style in the main menu, choose Number Format. Here we get a listing of the various types of formats that numbers can take. You might recognize the list as the same one we saw on the status bar. The range at the bottom shows that we have chosen every cell from C1 to the very bottom of the E column, E 8192. There is an X in the Show in status bar, so any new choices we make here will be reflected on the bottom line of the screen. Click on Currency and several new choices appear. First, we can specify how many decimal places we want to show. The default is 2, so we will leave that. The smaller currency window lists several types of currency which will show unique symbols, and we can scroll through that list using the arrow and scroll bar to the right of that window. We want to highlight the US dollar choice, which is highlighted by default. There is an option for us to modify symbol, but there will be no need to do that. So we'll just press the Enter key or click on OK, and the numbers in the selected area are converted to read as US dollars. Click the mouse anywhere in the spreadsheet to remove the range highlighting. Now, Suzanne, we're really ready to do some what-if analysis to complete our budget. Click on D9 to select February's insurance expense and type in $200 to show your auto insurance. Press the Enter key.
Professor, what are the parentheses for?
Lotus displays parentheses to show a negative balance. Not to worry, Suzanne, we can fix that, and this is where what-if analysis comes in handy. Since we have already entered formulas, we can play around with the other monthly expenses until we have a zero balance again. Select cell D6. Now let's see what happens if we change the clothing budget to $50 for February and reduce our leisure budget in cell D10 to $75. There, that balances again. Of course, you can try out other what-if scenarios, such as reducing the amount of money put into savings instead of leisure. Feel free to experiment with the budget after this lesson. Before going any further, click on the Save icon to quickly save these changes to disk. Then we'll print this spreadsheet. Although you can keep your work on disk, it is sometimes helpful and even necessary to print out your work. To do this, you'll need a printer or access to one. Suzanne, click on the icon for Print. This dialog box gives us access to everything needed for printing the spreadsheet. At the top of this box, we are shown which printer is currently connected and active. Suzanne, it looks like we'll be using an HP LaserJet 2. To change printers, you need to click on the Printer Setup button under the File menu. So let's close this box for a minute and look there. Press Escape and pull down the File menu. Select Printer Setup. All the printers or print drivers that have been selected in Windows will appear in this window. The Setup button on the right will give us more control over how each printer prints a spreadsheet. The HP printer is already selected here, so click on Cancel to close the dialog box. Now click on the printer icon again. We have 3 radio buttons for our choice to print current worksheet, or to print all worksheets, or to print selected range. Because there is only one worksheet that we have worked on, we could choose either print all worksheets or print current worksheet. We want to print the selected worksheet, which is the worksheet you currently have on screen, so leave that option selected. In the Pages section, we have a default setting of pages from 1 to 9,999, starting with page number 1. But since there is only one sheet that we have entered data onto, there's really only one sheet that will print. The number of copies is set to a default of 1, so we will leave that alone also. One of the most useful options to use before printing is Preview. We can access this option in this dialog box through the File menu or by clicking on the Print Preview button on the icon bar. Suzanne, click on the Preview button within this dialog box. Immediately, you have a screen view of the worksheet. The buttons at the top of the preview screen give us control over what we are previewing. For example, if we had multiple sheets in this budget, we could look at each individual page. We can enlarge and decrease the size of the preview window. We can also adjust the printed page layout. Click on the Page Layout button to bring up the Page Setup window. This has all the information regarding the page margins, the headers and footers, page orientation, and the like. Suzanne, let's adjust the margins so that your budget is centered on the page. On the right are 2 toggle choices for centering our work. Click on the Center Horizontally box to put an X in it. The page orientation on the far left has Portrait selected, which I think is best. But we need something in the footer section to remind us when we created this sheet, in case you want to go back later and adjust your budget items. Click the center portion of the footer, and you'll notice that the 5 icons immediately activated directly below that. There's a calendar, a clock, a page number, and more. Click on the calendar so that the date will be added to the center of the page at the bottom. It is represented in the footer window by an @ sign. There are many more options to choose from within this dialog box. Feel free to come back and experiment applying them after this lesson. For now, click on OK. Well, it seems generally okay, but it's hard to tell in this small print. We need a close-up. Since the cursor is now a magnifying glass with a plus sign in it, a click with the mouse key will show us a closer view of any area of the preview page we choose. Let's click right on the date at the bottom to see what that will look like. Now remember, the size change is just for our preview. This doesn't mean that our spreadsheet will print any bigger. It just lets us check the details before deciding it's time to print. That looks okay, Suzanne. We can close Print Preview and click on OK in the Print window. Or just click on the Print the Current Selection button to send our budget to the printer. Let's do that, Suzanne, and click OK on the Print window. And in a few seconds, we'll have a hard copy of the budget in our hands. As I promised at the beginning of this lesson, we are going to learn how to create a chart. Suzanne and I will use the same version of Lotus 123 within Windows 95 just to give you an idea of how this program looks in this version of Windows. Don't worry, you should still be able to follow along even if you don't have Windows 95 installed. For this next section, you'll need a new spreadsheet file open on screen. With a new spreadsheet open, enter these labels and numbers to create a simpler budget. Now, let's get started. First, click the left mouse button and hold it down on Rent. While you're holding down the mouse button, move the mouse pointer across the words and numbers. You'll see a dark background appear. We call this highlighting, and this tells the computer you want to use these specific words and numbers. When you've completely highlighted the expenses, release the mouse button. Next, move the mouse pointer to the little chart button. Click the left mouse button once. Then move the mouse pointer to the New Sheet button. Click the left mouse button one time. The new screen you see is where your chart will appear. Notice the mouse arrow looks different now, like the chart button. Next, simply move the little chart button to the upper left corner. Now, click the left mouse button once and hold it down again. Pull the mouse down and to the right. Notice the outline of a box. This tells us the size your chart will be. Pull it all the way down to the bottom right corner and release the mouse button. And there you are, the monthly expenses in chart form. If you'd like to make other charts, that's easy too. Move the mouse arrow to any of these chart type buttons and click the left mouse button one time. Each of these charts has the same information. They just display it differently depending on what you want to see. This 3D pie chart looks useful. You can see what % of your income goes to each expense. This is so simple once you know the steps. Well, Suzanne, I can see you're ready to get back to planning your budget. Thanks for helping with this lesson.
Thank you, Professor. You make learning easy.
And remember, you can always learn more from me, the Video Professor.